Hi guys, resuming our video. This is the Battle of the Peach Orchard and this is part 3, resuming the battle on turn 6. If you manage to get to the end of part 2, you'll have realised that I clocked when I was doing the editing. I made quite a few mistakes and we had a Union brigade here that was faltering, that didn't take its falter test. We had a Confederate brigade down here which rolled twice to get its reserves on the table in turn 3 and then finally coming on in turn 5. Because I forgot to move them on. So apologise for those, and also we missed a bunch of fire dice for our elite regiments and adjustments for veteran regiments. We'll try better this time. Anyway, let's get cracking. And yeah, I haven't used these rules for a long time, as is pretty clear. So yeah, apologies in advance for any further mistakes we made. All right, let's kick off for ADCs for turn 6. So the Confederates now have 3 brigades on the table, and they get a bonus brigade for Hood, and they have 1 more off-table brigade. So let's see what they can do. And again, well, not yet. Pretty terrible roll. Only 2 ADCs for the rebels. And then for the Union, we now have 3 brigades on the table, and they have 3 off-table brigades still to arrive. So the Union do better. They get 4 ADCs. Right, let's allocate those ADCs and then we'll do our activations and roll for initiative. All right, let's activate the Union first. So Graham's brigade, we've just allocated 1 dice to them. You can see that dice sitting over there. That's just for a straight reroll. They roll a 2, they need the reroll, they roll a 4. Graham's brigade is active. All right, we allocated 2 ADCs to Trobrin's brigade, as they should be faltering and should have been faltering last turn. So we'll count them as a falter, and they roll a 2 with a reroll a 2. So they're going to keep retiring, I think, on a 2. They paused for a turn, but they're still feeling unsure. So they are a veteran brigade on a 2. They get a further withdrawal result. So they lose another casualty and will fall back another 12 inches. And then finally, we get, I think it was Tilton's brigade, that are just coming on table as reserves over on the far left. They roll a 4, they're active. So we have 1 hesitant Union brigade, and we'll just do the fallback of Trobrin's brigade. All right, let's roll for Barksdale's Mississippi. They've got a reroll. They get a 2, they need that reroll. They get a 3. Just, there you go, active. So Barksdale can continue the assault. All right, let's have a look at how Kershaw's brigade of South Carolina troops can do, trying to keep the pressure up. Again, they fail their activation. They have a reroll. That's definitely a cock dice. A 5. Yep, South Carolina are active. And then finally, the newly arrived Anderson's brigade. Another cock dice. A 1. There you go, hesitant. All right, that's it. So both sides are on -1. So it'll be a straight roll off. The Confederates get the initiative for the first time. They roll an 11 to the Union 9. Confederates get the option of charging first and then onto normal movement. All right, so Kershaw's 2nd South Carolina have charged and drove those Union skirmishers that are in the woods back, and they've fallen back behind that rail fence. I think that's the only charge for the turn, and then we'll start with normal movement. Rebels to go first. Right, let's start with the rebels from left to right. So the 2, the most left-hand rebel Mississippi regiment has stayed in position, covered by its skirmish screen, and we're going to open fire on the Pennsylvania 105th, I think it is, opposite them. Then the 13th Pennsylvania has moved forward to the edge of the farm. The 21st Mississippi has stayed in position. Then the rest of the South Carolina has moved forward in support of the charging 2nd South Carolina. So the 8th South Carolina have lost fire discipline. They decided to move, so they'll keep that status of lost fire discipline, but moved forward through the woods and stayed formed up. And the 7th South Carolina are also formed up, moving through the woods. The 3rd South Carolina are now moving up in their support, and the Georgian regiment stayed where it was. Right, let's go around and see where we are with the Union's troops. Tilton's brigade has now moved off the road and starting to move into the broken terrain of little round top and the ridge that backs the peach orchard. So they're moving out onto that position. As we saw, Trobren's brigade continues to fall back. Its units are now getting close to the table edge down here. The Graham's brigade has now pivoted to its left as the South Carolina troops are approaching those fence lines. Its gun battery that had fallen back has deployed and is ready to open fire once the Union skirmishers withdraw, if that's what they choose to do. And to support them, the 68th Pennsylvania and the 3rd Michigan have formed line facing the South Carolina troops, and the 141st Pennsylvania has taken a more forward position behind this fence line. 2nd New Hampshire's has formed up, and they haven't actually moved this turn, so they will have that smoke taken off. They will have lost their loss of fire discipline, and in support of them, the 114th Pennsylvania have formed up against that fence line. The two other right-hand regiments, the 105th Penn and the 57th Pennsylvania, remain in position and will exchange fire with the rebels. All right, let's move on to firing rebels. All right, we'll fire first with the 8th South Carolina. They've already lost fire discipline, so this will be a deadbeat volley. So to some extent, firing and losing fire discipline again will cause no further penalties to them. So this will be a deadbeat volley. They moved, it'll be -2. They've got 5 casualties, that takes it to -3, and they're firing across that fence line at the 2nd New Hampshire. So let's see what we roll. Do pretty well. We roll a 9, that will drop to a 5 on a deadbeat volley, which is half a casualty. Can they cause 1 more casualty on the New Hampshires? They don't. All right, so no effect from their firing, but they have lost fire discipline. So we can... oh no, I think they still have lost fire discipline and still until they remain stationary. So you don't have to rescore it each turn to keep that loss of fire discipline. You just have to have moved. All right, next open fire will be the 21st Mississippi. They've only got 2 casualties. They haven't moved. They are a large regiment, and they are elite. So they will get 4 extra casualty dice on top of this volley. -1 because of the cover the 2nd New Hampshire are in. So they roll a 5, but they do get 3 extra casualties. This is a standard volley. That goes down to a 4, so they will lose fire discipline, but they do 3 casualties on the 2nd New Hampshire. Next open fire will be the 13th Mississippi. This is just a regular regiment, but it is elite, so it does get 2 fire dice. They're going to fire at the Pennsylvania troops in the woods. They moved, and the Pennsylvania troops are in cover. So this will be a -3 off their raw roll. Well, they also lose fire discipline and don't cause any casualties, so no great shooting there. And then finally, the rebel skirmishers will go against the 105th, and they get 1-5, so 1 more casualty on the Union. So not great firing from the Mississippi troops this turn. All right, starting in the north, the 105th Pennsylvania will open fire against that line of rebel skirmishers. 2 dice firing at -2, -3 because they've got 6 casualties. They roll a 9, that goes down to a 6 for a standard volley. It's 1 more casualty against the skirmishers. Then the 57th Pennsylvania will open fire against a combination of the skirmishers and the 13th Michigan, I think it is, directly to their front. First casualty will go on the skirmishers, the rest will go on the 13th Michigan. They've got 4 casualties, so it'll be a -1, and they're in cover as well. So that will be a -2 because of the trees in the way. They roll an 11, so good firing by the Union. That goes down to a 9 at close range. That is 3 casualties, 1 on the skirmishers and 2 on the Mississippi, and at least see the elephant test. So for the skirmishers, 6, they're elite, so that will be fine. And for the 13th Mississippi, a 3. That is not good. They will be in retirement. Let's see exactly what they get. I see the elephant test. They are whipped, so they retreat. And we'll do that movement. Finally, the 2nd New Hampshires will open fire They formed up this turn, so they have no longer got fire discipline. They are a large regiment, so they will get 2 combat dice, and they're firing at close range in cover. So this will be a -1, and they're on 10 casualties, so -3 for the New Hampshires. So they roll a 9 for a standard volley. It's not too bad. The Unions definitely fired well this turn, so a standard volley 9 becomes a 6. So that's 1 casualty on the Mississippi, and then on the combat dice, a 3 and a 3. So just 1 more casualty on the Mississippi. Takes on the 21st Mississippi, that takes them up to 3. And then the Union skirmishers who fell back, they still have 3 bases firing. The rebels are in the woods, so they'll lose a combat dice. They need 5s and 6s. They don't get any 5s and 6s. That's it for them. That's the end of turn 6. All right, let's see what happens as we roll up next turn. Again, the Union assault's been disjointed by having one of their regiments thrown back. I think you can do passage of lines, so the unit that is behind the 13th Mississippi will be able to exchange places with them. But again, the 13th have actually got less casualties, but the 17th is a large regiment. So we'll see what we do. We'll also check the rules for passage of lines, but I think you can freely interpenetrate in Pickett's charge. And we'll see what we do as we roll for ADCs in the next turn. The Union still holding on to the Peach Orchard, having temporarily given ground. It looks like they're fighting back. All right, ADCs again. Hood gets 4 ADCs and has 1 off table. Can he do well for his ADCs this turn? He does! I wished it, didn't I? When I was rolling those dice, they all came through, all active. And then for the Union, we have 3 brigades on table, and then we've got 3 brigades off table. The red will be the off table dice, and the Unions do actually lose a dice because they had their whipped regiment and consequently did lose 1. All right, the Union get no ADCs this turn. That is not good. That means that we are automatically continuing to falter. I will check, but I think they become the worst status of faltering brigades, contemptuously chewed up, so they'll have to retreat 18 inches. They may still stay on the table, but they'll take another 2 casualties each. And let's roll for Union activation, because we know what's happened to Trobriand's brigade. All right, Graham's brigade, no rerolls, and they go hesitant. And Tilton's brigade, no rerolls, and they go hesitant. Every brigade in the Union army is hesitant this turn. All right, let's allocate those rebel chiefs of staff and see what they're going to do. Okay, so for the Confederate troops, Barksdale's brigade has got a reroll, and they're all 3, so they're active. Then the South Carolina brigade under Kershaw also got a reroll. They need the reroll. They got a 1, a 4. They are active, and then we've given 3 ADCs to Anderson's brigade. So we're giving them a forwards order. They do get a reroll, and they get it. So they get a 3d6 bonus movement. Let's just roll that so we don't forget. Pretty startling result there. 12, 17. So we'll leave that 17 next to the newly arrived Anderson's brigade. Yeah, Anderson's brigade. And let's roll for initiative. This will be -3 for the Union, as all brigades are hesitant. The Union get a 3, the Rebels get a 5, so the Rebels do have initiative. We'll do the faltering brigade first, and then it'll be over to the Union. For the Rebels for potential charges. All right, let's start with the Rebels. The Mississippi troops, the 17th Mississippi, have passed through the retiring 13th and then move forward to re-engage the Union troops in the centre here, allowing the 13th to regain fire discipline. The 21st Mississippi stayed where it was, has regained fire discipline. And as we move here along to the South Carolina, the 3rd South Carolina, being veterans, are allowed a free formation change. They moved into double line just to get through this dense terrain and this narrow corridor here. So they've done that, moved forward. the 8th South Carolina moved through the orchard and moved up against the fence line. Because they moved, they retained their loss of fire discipline status, but they remained formed. The 2nd South Carolina continued unformed up to the fence line, and the 7th South Carolina have swung to their right. They've remained formed, moving through the woods and up to the ridge line to face Tilton's brigade. And here we have the Anson's brigade, the Georgians that have arrived and had their forwards order. They used their advance to get to the crest of these positions. So they got good firing positions, but 3 of the 4 regiments went unformed as they moved up through that woodland and rocky terrain. Opposing them, a couple of the Union regiments remain unformed, but they've shaken out into lines to start exchanging some fire with the South Carolina and Georgian regiments as they battle for the ridgeline and the edge of Little Round Top. All right, this is turn 7. Let's get on with the firing. Yeah, just before I get on with the firing, any remaining units in Graham's brigade that moved? We had a little bit of shuffling, but nothing substantial. The skirmishers pulled back and went to their left, and the other units just went and formed up because actually Tilton's brigade was hesitant, so it couldn't have moved forward. All right, we'll redeploy those back by that fence line because that's where they'll have to be. I forgot they were hesitant. Right, there we go, corrected that mistake, sorry about that. So Tilton's brigade have formed up along that fence line, not coming any closer towards the rebel units that are just reaching the skyline ahead of them. All right, let's move on to firing. We'll start as we have with the rebel units on the left. So firstly, the rebel skirmishers will open fire against the 105th Pennsylvania, needing 5s or 6s. They get 1 5 and 1 6, so 2 more casualties on the Pennsylvanians. The 17th Mississippi, they are not going to fire. They've advanced and the enemy is in cover, and we don't want to lose fire discipline. Do we want to lose fire discipline? We will get our fire dice. Yeah, we might just do that because we're a large regiment and we're elite, so we will get 4 fire dice. So the 17th Mississippi will open fire at long range against the rebels. Against the Union troops guarding the farm. They'll be firing against the New Hampshire. Let's see what we get. We get a 5, so they do lose fire discipline, and they only get 1 fire dice. So it probably wasn't worth it. They lose fire discipline, they cause 1 more casualty on the New Hampshire. Right, 21st Mississippi will open fire. They are also a large elite regiment, so 4 combat dice. This will be a superior volley just at -1, firing at the 2nd New Hampshire. Still some pretty terrible firing, only rolling a 6. I'll go down to a 5, which is just causing 1 casualty. So that's 3 more casualties on the New Hampshire, but they are under a lot of pressure now. They've taken a lot of casualties. All right. So the 8th South Carolina are going to have to go for this. It takes 14 casualties for the 2nd New Hampshire to disperse, and they're one of the better regiments in the Union Army here, and they've got 13, so just 1 casualty needed. This is a veteran regiment. They have lost fire discipline, so this will just be a deadbeat volley. Let's see what they can do. They need a decent roll. They roll a 9, that's almost certainly enough. Deadbeat volley, 9 is 3 casualties, and see the elephant test. Then 2nd New Hampshire is taken up from 13 to 16 casualties. Its dispersal point is 14 casualties. So Graham's brigade is again faltering, and they've lost a regiment. Actually, that wouldn't have been a 9 because I forgot the 2nd South Carolina moved, so it would be down to a 6 because of the fence line defence and moved. That causes 1 casualty, but it's still enough to disperse the 2nd New Hampshire. All right, then we've got the 2nd South Carolina. They moved, they're firing at units behind fence lines, and they're unformed, so they are not going to open fire. The 7th South Carolina, and indeed all the Georgia regiments, are going to withhold their fire this turn. They'll take the opportunity to form up and give some steady volleys next turn. They're all firing at long range, so not much to gain from that. All right, now time for the Union firing. Let's go and check the 105th Pennsylvania, see how many casualties they've had. Okay, so starting with the 105th Pennsylvania over here on the Union right flank. They've got 8 casualties, so this volley will be at -2, and they're firing at skirmishers. That will make it -4. They roll better, as they have consistently, than the Confederates, a 9, but unfortunately with that -4 adjustment, that only goes down to a 5. It is a standard volley, so that is 1 more casualty on the rebel skirmishers, and they will lose a base, so 3 figures will go. Then we will fire the 114th Pennsylvania. No, I don't think they've got any targets in range. We'll fire this regiment. Apologies, I can't see their regimental designation. They're going to split their fire between the 8th and 2nd South Carolina, and they did form up this turn, so I don't think that counts as moving for this purpose. So this will be a standard volley, split 50-50 between the 2 units. They roll a 4, that goes down to a 3 because of the fence, so they lose fire discipline. And then finally for the Unions, the Union skirmishers will open fire 2 shots, also against the 2nd South Carolina. They do cause 1 casualty on the 2nd South Carolina. And then we've got some artillery fire from the Union artillery battery that has come back into play. It's going to fire between the woods and the fence line, also at the 2nd South Carolina. Okay, so the Union battery is a mixed battery. That means it does have a 15-inch range rather than the 12-inch range for canister that the smoothbore guns, the rifle guns have. But it doesn't get the canister bonus because it's not a pure smoothbore battery. All right, so this will be just 2 shots, no casualty dice, -1 because of the cover that the Union troops have got. And we roll a 7, that goes down to a 6. This is a shot at close range. That is 2 more casualties on the 2nd South Carolina. They're now in a pretty bad way. They're up to 9 casualties, and we'll have to think about falling them back and perhaps swapping them with the 3rd South Carolina, who are coming up in reserve. That's it, I think, for firing this turn. That brings turn 7 to a close. We'll probably just finish turn 8 and then I'll have a break to get some food. All right, let's do turn 8. So both sides have done better. Both sides actually got 2 6s, which gives them a bonus dice. So the Confederates have 4 staff officers and 5 staff officers rather, and the Union have 4. They need to allocate 2 to Trobriand's brigade because we're still determined to retrieve that, and then we're going to put re-rolls on Tilton's and Graham's brigade. Let's roll for these first. So Graham's brigade is active. Tilton's brigade has got its re-roll. It is active, and now let's roll for Trobriand's brigade. Can we save it before it flees off table? A 5, I think, for veterans, which is what they are. They obey orders. Tilton's brigade finally comes back under control. Sorry, Trobriand's brigade finally comes back under control, and no wavering units for the Union troops. For the rebels, we're going to put re-rolls on all 3 on-table brigades, and then we're going to use 2 dice to bring on our final reserve. So let's roll for activations. Barksdale's brigade first, the Mississippi troops, is active. Then we've got Kershaw's brigade is active. Then Anderson's brigade does need its re-roll. It is active. And then for our reserves, our Texans, they are also on table. All right, so both sides have no hesitant brigades, so this will be a straight roll off. Confederates had initiative last turn, so if it's a draw, the Confederates get it. No, double 6. That's good news for the Union. They have initiative this turn. They get to charge and move first. No charges for the Union. They're still on defensive mode at the moment. And let's see whether we can do any charges with the rebels. Concluded no charging for the rebels, so I'll just do everyone's movement and give you a summary of. Right, let's have a look at the rebel position. So Anderson's brigade has formed up on this crestline to open fire against the Union troops down in the valley below, supported by the 7th South Carolina. Also from Hood's division, Robertson's brigade has now arrived, the 1st Texas and 3rd Arkansas, another couple of elite large regiments with a view to potentially driving through these woods and isolating the remnants of Graham's brigade that are faltering in the woods over there. Did I do the falter test on them? I am so forgetful. It's because I haven't got any markers, so I'm having to do it all from memory. We rolled for activation. Let's see. They rolled a 5. Okay, so they're all right. They would have obeyed orders. Thank God for that. That means I don't have to reset anything. That would have been just too complicated. All right. Yeah, so the Texans coming on in support. The South Carolina, the 2nd South Carolina, has pulled back from the ridgeline. 9 casualties, too likely to break. They've been replaced by the 3rd South Carolina. Haven't yet had a chance to deploy into line. The Union have done again a passage of lines, and the 13th Mississippi have taken over the position of the 17th, allowing the 17th to regain from fire discipline. Rebel skirmishers have occupied the woods, and the 17th Mississippi continues to advance towards Graham's brigade and the 110th Pennsylvania on the far left. All right, that's all the movement for the turn. Let's do the firing rebels to go first. Okay, so we're going to start with the 17th Mississippi. They will get 2 fire dice because they're an elite brigade. I will need to check the range. They may be in standard volley. Yeah, indeed they are. So this will be a standard volley in the distance there as the 17th open up on 105th Pennsylvania. They have moved and they have got 7 casualties. So this will be at -3, but they get 2 fire dice for being an elite brigade. Let's see if the rebels can finally make their firing pay. Doesn't look great for, they lose fire discipline and they only cause 1 more casualty on 105th Pennsylvania. Alright, the rebel skirmishers will open fire from within the woods. They will get 3 shots rather than 4 because they've lost one of their skirmish bases. Let's see what they do against the 57th Pennsylvania. They roll a 6, they cause 1 more casualty. So that's 1 casualty on each of those 2 Union. Right, 13 Mississippi are also going to open fire. This will be at -2 again because they moved. -3 because the Union troops, the 110th, I think it's 110th or is it 114th Pennsylvania, the Zouaves, are in cover. So that'll make it only a -3 roll, but they will get 2 combat dice, again, for being an elite regiment. Let's see how the 17th can do. Again, another appalling roll. A 7 goes down to a 4, so they will lose fire discipline. All right, and now we will open fire with the 21st Mississippi. They're going to fire at the 114th Pennsylvania as well. They will get 4 combat dice. This will be a long-range volley, but 4 combat dice for being elite and at long range. Let's see what they do. Still terrible on the combat dice, only 1, but they have rolled a 9 on long range. That is 1.5 casualties. Converts to 2, so that's 3 casualties on the 114th Pennsylvania, but no see the elephant test. All right, let's open up with the 3rd South Carolina against the 141st Pennsylvania. These are not an elite regiment, so this will just be a standard deadbeat volley because they're in double line at -1 because they're firing over the fence. They roll a 7, that goes down to a 6 for a deadbeat volley, that's 1 casualty. And then we'll open up with the 8th South Carolina. This will be at -2 because they've got 5 casualties and are also firing over a fence. They roll a bit better. They roll a 10. So it goes down to an 8. Theirs isn't a deadbeat. This is a standard volley. So that takes them the 141st Pennsylvania up to 5 casualties, and they've got to do a discipline test. So this will be a discipline test at -1. They roll an 11, so they are absolutely fine, but they've taken cumulatively 3 more casualties. Okay, so now we'll open up with the Georgians and the 7th South Carolina. These will all be full strength but long range volleys. So we've got 3 long range volleys to do, 2 against this regiment, the 22nd Maine, and 1 against the 18th Maine. All right, let's do the 2 against the 22nd Maine. Right hand regiment is the red. They lose fire discipline and we get an 8 on a long range volley. That is 1 casualty. And then our other one will open up on the other main regiment and they get a 5. That won't be anything, I don't think, for a long range volley. No, nothing at all. Only 1 casualty, and our centre regiment there loses fire discipline. Right, that's it for the rebels. Now we'll switch to Union. Right, so we'll start with the Pennsylvania Regiment on the far right wing of the Union Army. They're definitely -2 penalty, -4 penalty because they fell back this turn, and they've got 2 casualties. Shall they fire? I think they will. They've had a better chance of firing. 8 goes down to a 4. They lose fire discipline. Right, 57th Pennsylvania. They have got a -1 for casualties, -1 for firing through the woods, and -2 for firing at skirmishers. Will they fire again? Yes, they will. Let's see how they do. They also lose fire discipline. Perhaps this wasn't such a great idea. Then we've got the 114th Pennsylvania. This will be a long-range shot. They're going to go against the 17th. They're all a 5. They're also firing into cover there, so that goes down to a 4. So all 3 of those Union regiments lose fire discipline. Then our 141st Pennsylvania will open fire at 50% the 8th South Carolina and 50% the 3rd South Carolina. They've lost fire discipline, so this will be a deadbeat volley and at -1. Wow, terrible fire from the Confederates, from the Union this time. They retain or keep their loss of fire discipline. Then the Union skirmishers will open fire, just 2 dice. They don't do anything. The Union artillery battery will open fire at the 3rd South Carolina. They've only taken 2 casualties. This is a regular shot at close range. They roll a 7. That'll be not too bad. Close range 7 is 2 casualties and a C the elephant test on South Carolina. They hold their morale, but they take their first 2 casualties off the game. Right, and then finally we've got a deadbeat volley from the 22nd Maine and a volley from the 18th Maine, but they will be unformed, so they'll be firing at -2. Actually, both of these volleys will be long-range volleys. So let's do the first. Double 6, that's pretty good. So even that will be 3 casualties and a discipline test on the 3rd South Carolina. That takes them to a disordered state, not disordered status, but damaged status. And let's take their See the Elephant test. They're all 9, they're fine, but that will be a serendipity test for the Union. And then the other long-range volley, we roll a 6. That will be half a casualty. Let's see if it converts, which it doesn't. So let's just do the serendipity test. And let's see what happens to Tilton's brigade. They get an 8. Hurrah! Heroic action as a superior regiment. +1 to formation tests. Effectively, they get +1 to their morale. All right, so they will go up to being a veteran unit. Just need to remember that. Not much chance of that. Here we go. Okay, right, let's do a recap of where we are at the end of turn 8. So looking pretty reasonable for the rebels, but the Union really needs to take advantage of all their reserves, bring some of those reserves on. Tilton's brigade has been stuck on the fence line. The Georgians and South Carolinians have taken the heights and are pouring volleys down on them. We've got the Texans coming on to try and do a breakthrough and cut Graham's brigade off from its support, and a lot of firepower coming in against Graham's brigade and starting to take heavy casualties. The only slight glimmer was the rallying of Tribrin's brigade right on the baseline, so at least some potential support, even if it's a very weak brigade, available on table for the Union. All right, really one now that the Unions are going to have to maximise their reserve rolls. Let's hope they get some decent ADC in turn 9. All right, I'll see you again for turn 9. Cheers, everyone. All right, here we are on turn 9 as the rebels continue their assault on the peach orchard. This is going to be tough for the Union going forward, with both Graham's brigade and Trobriand's brigade having been contemptuously chewed up. Both of them have lost a staff officer. So this means that the Union will only be rolling for 1 staff officer on table, and then they've got their 3 reserve brigades sitting there on the sofa waiting to come on. So it's going to be tough for the Union to activate. This should give some additional momentum to Hood and his assault, as they're still benefiting from a bonus staff officer in their activation rolls. Right, so let's roll for the Confederates first. So we've got 4 brigades on table plus their bonus brigade, so 3s or more needed for their activations. Pretty good. They get a double 6, so that gives them an extra ADC, so they're on 4 ADCs. And then for the Union, we'll roll 1 red dice for their active brigade, and the blues are the ones who are off table. Well, actually pretty good for the Union. They get 3 ADCs. I know what the Union are going to do straight away. They're going to use one of those to do a reserve roll with a re-roll. But let's not jump the gun. Let's allocate those and roll for it. All right, the Union are going to kick off with their re-roll for Tilton. He will need a 3 to activate, and he's got a re-roll. He rolls a 4, they're active. Now we'll roll for Will's. I think it was Will's Zouave Brigade, another reserve from the 5th Corps. And they activate and come on. Then we'll roll for Graham's Brigade. They're active. And then Trobriand's Brigade remains hesitant on the baseline. So 1 hesitant Union Brigade. All right, let's roll for the Confederates. We're going to put a forwards order on the Texans, try and move those out. So a double quick order in this. That takes 2 staff officers and 1 for a reroll. Then we will put a reroll on Barksdale's Mississippi Brigade. All right, let's roll for Barksdale first. He goes active. And then for the South Carolina, Kershaw's Brigade. They are also active. Then our Georgians, Anderson's Brigade. They are also active. And then let's roll for the Texans. They're active as well. All right, so the rebels have all their brigades active. The Union have 3 of theirs active. So this will be a -1 on our initiative roll-off. Oh, might have spotted. We need an extra red dice. A 9 against an 8. So even without the -1 modifier, the rebels have it. They have initiative this turn. Let's see if they're going to do any charge. All right, with the loss of so much fire discipline, the rebels are definitely going to assault. So we're going to attack with the 8th South Carolina, who are going to charge across the fence line at the, is that? Again, I keep forgetting the name of that. Yes, 141st Pennsylvania. And then our 17th Mississippi are going to charge the 105th Pennsylvania as well. And we might conceivably charge the 141st Pennsylvania with our 21st Mississippi. I think we will. So the 21st Mississippi and the 3rd South Carolina, the 8th South Carolina will have to roll for going unformed as they cross these fence lines. All right, so there are no limits on the number of units that can charge. So the 8th South Carolina are going to charge, and the 3rd South Carolina will support them. Let's roll as they try and cross the fence line. So 8th South Carolina first. They roll a 7. They are veterans, so they pass on a 6. They've got 5 casualties. That takes it down to a 6, but they're successful. And then the 3rd South Carolina also pass. So they remain formed and charged to within 3 inches of that Pennsylvania. All right, an important roll. 21st Mississippi have got to roll their elite, and they will be crossing some fence lines for this charge to go in. They roll a 9. That's successful. Now let's see how far their charge distance is. They get a 2-inch bonus on top of their 9-inch charge. If they're within 11, that charge goes. All right, so starting with the 18th Mississippi against the 105th Pennsylvania. So the 105th Pennsylvania have lost fire discipline. So this will be a deadbeat volley, and they are at 9 casualties. So this will be a deadbeat volley at -2. Let's see if there are any other adjustments to this. All right, no other casualties, so let's roll for their volley. They roll pretty well. They roll a 9. At -2 becomes a 7 for a deadbeat volley. That's 2 casualties on the 18th Mississippi. All right, so this will be a straight roll off. The Confederates are now up to 9 casualties. They took 2 in that volley from the Union troops, so that's a -1 modifier. They get +1 for being elite. Both sides have a cumulative 9 casualties, so that means both take a -2 modifier. All right, so straight roll off. Let's see how we do. Roll in this field. Okay, so the Union roll a 5 and the Rebels roll an 8, so the Rebels win by 3. All right, just check the rules, and a whipped unit, which those Union forces are, with a loss of 3, takes 1d3 casualties. So if we roll a 5 or a 6, that unit will disperse. They fall back 18 inches and they will be unformed at the end of the move. They take 5, but that's it for that unit. That takes them up to 12 casualties, and 105th Pennsylvania dispersed. Right, the 18th Mississippi have driven the 105th Pennsylvania off the field and gone surging forward. They rolled a 10-inch follow-on move, but unfortunately that lands them just in front of, not to the side of or behind those Union guns. They'll take some canister fire. All right, let's do the charge of the 21st Mississippi against the 114th, sorry, I think I said 141st, 114th Pennsylvania Zouaves. Then for this one, we've got again a volley from the Pennsylvania Zouaves, 114th. Let's do that volley. So see how they go. They are doing another deadbeat volley because they've lost fire discipline, and this will be at -1 because they've already got 5 casualties. They roll a 7, that goes down to a 6 for a deadbeat volley, which is 1 casualty on the 21st Mississippi, but that is enough to give them a -1 on their morale check. Yeah, charge check rather than morale check. All right, now let's roll for the charge. So the 21st Mississippi are an elite unit, so they get +1. And they've suffered 4 casualties, so that will give them a -1. There are no modifiers for being a large unit, and no modifiers for charging. For the defenders, they are regulars, so there's no modifiers for that. They're not unformed, the brigade's not hesitant, they simply have a -1 modifier. So this will be -1 for the Union dice. The Union roll a 6, that goes down to a 5, but the Rebels only roll a 3. So the Union have won by 2. So defender, they halt and volley, and the defender holds. So the 21st Mississippi will volley, being a large regiment. I assume they get 3 dice. Let's see what they do. They cause no casualties. All right, so they just stay in place. And now the final charge of the turn. The 8th South Carolina and 3rd South Carolina will charge. I think this was the 141st Pennsylvania. I just need to check whether there's any way that Union artillery battery will be able to fire into the 3rd South Carolina. I've just done a quick scan of the rules. Can't see anything about passing fire, which is one of the rules in General Dame. So given that that unit is out of support range, the artillery will not be able to support the 141st Pennsylvania as they seek to defend against this charge. They will get a deadbeat volley at -1 again because they're on 5 casualties. They roll a 7, that goes down to a 6. I think we know that one. That's 1 casualty, which causes no change in the status of the charging South Carolina. Okay, this will be another straight roll-off as both sides have a support. Both will get 1 re-roll, and both have got 5 or 6 casualties, so both will be at a -1 to the charge. Let's see how we do. The Rebels roll a 9, the Union roll a 4, so the Rebels win by 5. That'll be a good result. All right, right, this does not look great for Graham's brigade. So the Unions have now surrounded the pouring fire and have definitely flanked 114th Pennsylvania. And this position is defending the remainder of the Peach Orchard, looks in serious trouble. The brigade is now faltering as 2 units have been whipped this turn, or 1 dispersed and 1 whipped. The 3rd South Carolina have moved up towards that gun line. Both those Union artillery batteries are low on ammo, so that will potentially reduce the effect of their firing. So that's it for charge moves for the rebels this turn. Let's see if the Union forces are going to do any charges. I don't think they will. Let's get on with normal movement. And we've got a 3d6 forwards order on our Texans. Not a bad roll, they get a 9 this time, pretty average. We'll do that in a second. Let's do the rest of normal movement. I'll come back. Right, for Graham, there's not a lot of movement. We've got 1 unit there behind the guns that hasn't been engaged in a charge. It's going to stay where it is because it's providing the backstop for retreating Union units to form up behind. Then down here with Tilton's brigade, they've now formed up to face off against the Confederates, who've moved down off the hill. And then we've got our new brigade, Weed's brigade, 2 units of veteran Zouaves just entering the table to support the Union position. For Anderson's brigade, the front 2 regiments both went unformed as they were marching down through this difficult terrain. The 2 units to their rear remained formed up. It's always the way. The 7th South Carolina couldn't move, or they'll be out of command range. They're just about at the edge of command range at the moment, so I made them stay still on that hill. And the Texans and our Kansas troops are now moving up through the woods, try and bust through the remains of this Union position in the Peach Orchard, and they remained formed as they went through those woods. And the 7th South Carolina 2nd South Carolina have successfully formed up. All right, that's it for movement. We'll now do some firing, going from left to right with those rebel units that haven't yet. Starting on the far side of the table, the rebel skirmishers have deployed out from the woods. They've opened an opening fire on that Union battery. Let's see how they do. They don't cause any casualties. Then we've got the 1st of the Mississippi regiments. That's the 13th Regiment. They've moved up through the woods. They've already lost fire discipline. They've moved and they're firing through cover. So that doesn't look good. So they are elite though, so they will get some fire dice. So we are going to fire because they've already lost fire discipline. So that will be 2 dice plus 2 more for being an elite regiment. They've got only 2 casualties, so no fire modifier, but they are at -3 firing a weak volley. Okay, so they lose fire discipline and they don't get anything from their combat dice. So no net effect of that firing. No more firing over here in the centre. Everything else charged for the rebels. So we'll move across to the right here and do the firing of our units that are coming down potentially off the hill to fire at the Union. Now these front 2 regiments moved and went unformed. So that would be a -4 modifier, so they're not going to do anything. But the 7th South Carolina, they've got 6 casualties, but this will be a volley at -1. We'll just check the range, but they will open. Right, so this will be a standard volley at -1. Let's see how they do. They roll a 7, that'll be down to a 6. That'll just be 1 casualty on the... Right, now some chance for some Union return fire. So we're going to fire some canister first. We'll do this battery against the Mississippi, who've charged right up to the guns. Let's see what we can do, remembering what we are low on ammo. Right, the battery will open fire simply at -2 for being low on ammo and -1 more for the cumulative casualties. So it's a -3 modifier. They rolled a 9, so a close range battery at 6 is 2 casualties. Wow, I think that unit was on 9. It's up to 11 casualties. Those Mississippi troops have not long to hang in. Yeah, those Confederates really desperately need to fall back. They're now on 11 casualties, 1 away from dispersal. All right, then the Union regiment to their south will open fire. I think that was the 57th Pennsylvania from memory. They were not charged. They have lost fire discipline. they're firing into the woods. So this will be a deadbeat volley at -1 for the woods and -1 for their cumulative casualties. They do well, they roll a double 6. It's going to happen every now and again. That takes it down to a 10, so that's 3 casualties and a see the elephant test. Let's do the see the elephant test. On the Confederates, they pass the test on an 8, being elites, but they have 3 more casualties to mark up, and let's do the serendipity test. They roll a 6 on the serendipity test. The opposing unit immediately retires as their colonel was picked off in that round of firing. All right, so that's 3 casualties and a retire for that unit. It will also unform, potentially, the unit. I just check the rules because the unit was retiring rather than broken. I assume that means it's not broken. It doesn't cause the unit behind it to go unformed. All right, then we've got another artillery battery, another Confederate artillery battery to open up. This has only got 2 casualties. It's firing in the open. This will be canister. It's a mixed battery though, so it doesn't get any bonus dice for this. And it is low on ammunition, so it gets a -2 modifier. That goes down to a 4, close range, just forces 1 casualty. On the 3rd South Carolina, they get away lightly. Right, Confederate skirmishers will open fire. They'll go at the 7th South Carolina. They only have 2 dice, don't cause any casualties. Then we've got a small regiment down here. This is the, let's have a look, 22nd Maine, and I think it's the 18th Maine next to them. So the 22nd Maine is a small regiment, so this will be a deadbeat volley firing at the 8th Georgia. Another double 6 and deadbeat volley causes 4 casualties and a see the elephant test. So this will be a see the elephant test at -1 on the 8th Georgia. Let's see what they do. Blue dice. They roll a 7. Veterans, so they need a 6 to pass, and they had a -1 modifier. So they stay in the fight. We've got a serendipity test. We roll an 8 on the serendipity test. So that unit becomes a veteran unit. I've got a feeling it might already have been a veteran unit from a previous serendipity test. Okay, and then the 18th Maine are going to open up against the 59th Georgia close range, or at a standard volley. Don't do quite as well this time. On a standard volley, they roll a 6. Let's just see what a standard volley on a 6 is. Just 1 casualty on the 59th Georgia. So 59th Georgia, so we'll mark that casualty up. So some pretty heavy casualties on the rebel troops this turn. 2 lots of double 6s being run. That's pretty good for the Union. But now some tough stuff. They've got another faltering brigade, and I think all their artillery now in this brigade goes from low on ammunition to no ammunition, and we'll have to do their morale tests. Let's see how many ADCs we get. Right, let's roll for the Union first. They have 2 ADCs, 2 staff officers for their 2 non-broken brigades on table. They get 1 active ADC, and that is it. 1 active ADC for the Union, which they'll need to put on Graham's brigade. And then for the rebels, we've got 5 dice. Let's see how they do. They get 4 ADCs, but they've got a 666 in there. That only gives them 1 more. That gives them 5 ADCs to deploy. Right, let's allocate those ADCs, and then we'll roll for it. Okay, so the rebels are still following their plan. They've put a forwards order on Hood's Texan brigade. Let's see how they do. They go active. We've put a re-roll on the Georgians. They are active. We've put a re-roll on the South Carolina. They need the re-roll, and they go active. And then for our Mississippians, they go active as well. All Confederate regiments, brigades are. All right, trouble for the Union. We've only got 1 scout, staff officer rather. Let's roll for Graham's brigade. Let's see what happens. They roll a 1. They're whipped. I think after being whipped twice before, that's probably the end for Graham's brigade. They have to fall back again. They will take more casualties, and I think a whole bunch of their units may well disperse. Not good. Let's roll for their other brigades. So then we've got Treebrand's brigade are active, Tilton's brigade is active, and Weed's brigade that's just arrived is active. So we've only got a +1 bonus for the Confederates. They have had the initiative for a number of turns, and they hold it again this turn. Let's re-roll that one, that is remarkably cocked. A 4 goes down to a 3. Yep, indeed, the Confederates have initiative. Let's see what happens to Graham's brigade. All right, Graham's brigade's in a terrible position. It's now lost 4 regiments. One fled straight off the baseline. The other 3 regiments are all now falling back in disorder, and the guns are also, one of those guns is within 1 casualty of breaking and are pulling back. So they've completely surrendered the Peach Orchard and this position. And then for charges, there's only 1 charge that the Rebs can do, and that is the 3rd South Carolina, which is in a position to charge those units that fell back from engaging the Mississippians. They weren't able to fall back out of charge range. So that's the 1 unit that can reach, and it is charging home against those regiments. Let's see what happens when you charge units that are... Okay, so we have the 3rd South Carolina charging into the 114th Pennsylvania Zouaves. The Pennsylvania Zouaves have lost fire discipline. They are also unformed, so this will be a deadbeat volley at -2. Let's check any other modifiers. They are unformed. They've got, I think, 7 casualties, so that'll be -3. So I think it'll simply be a -3 modifier to this on a deadbeat volley. They roll a 7, that goes down to a 4 for a deadbeat volley. That is simply maintaining the fact that they have lost fire discipline. No casualties on the Confederate South Carolina regiment. All right, now let's roll the charge results for the 2 forces. So we are veteran, that's no modifier. We're not unformed, we're not tuckered out, we're not charging a flank or rear, so we've gone into the front of the 114th Pennsylvania. We didn't suffer any casualties in the charge, and we've only got 3 casualties overall. So no modifiers for the Confederates. For the Union forces, they're not veterans, I don't think. Let me just check their morale status. I think those ones are just, those Zouaves are just trained. Yeah, they're trained. So they are unformed, that's -2. They're in a faltering brigade, so that's -3. And they've got 7 casualties, so that's -4. So it'll be -4 to the Union roll, straight roll for the Confederates. Confederates roll a 10, the Union roll a 2, another great charge result. So they've won by 6 or more, so that results in give them cold steel, the defender routes, and their supports are whipped. Not good, and more casualties. All right, the 3rd South Carolina get the chance to pursue. They're going to pursue. It's going to have a chance of making this brigade broken, because they may be able to reach those guns ahead of them. Let's see what they roll. They roll a 10. Let's see if they reach the guns. Right, I've checked the rules, and the South Carolina can indeed reach the guns, but the guns already being limbered. Just evade. So for the South Carolina, it just takes them well out of position, and they won't actually achieve anything other than pushing those guns back. So no point in doing that particular charge. All right, that's it for charges in turn 10. Let's do normal Confederate movement. I don't know whether we'll play one more turn. It looks like it's pretty much all over for the Union forces. The Peach Orchard is well and truly captured. No Union troops anywhere close to that. The Mississippi Brigade is advancing through the Peach Orchard. It fought long and hard to capture it, has been successful. There's 2 large regiments in the front. A couple of those units are unformed, so they'll need to form up, and one of those is very, very damaged, but still making progress. Here we've got the Texan Brigade moving through. They'll probably have to do a redeploy order if they're going to interpenetrate the Georgians' line, South Carolina's line. Actually, I think I probably ought to withdraw that South Carolina regiment that's sitting in that that hill line, but it's not moved. It's stayed where it was. So I think it can stay there, but we will have to do a passage of lines and apply an ADC to allow those Texans to move forward. The South Carolina troops have swung round from these woods here, and they're now supporting their brother regiment that did its really successful charge into the retiring units of Sickles' Corps. The Georgian brigade down here, Anderson's brigade, is now all formed up. Tilton's brigade itself has deployed some more troops across the fence line to bring some more firepower into play. Weed's veteran brigade is starting to come on table to replace the damaged Graham's brigade. So that's movement. We'll be now on to firing. Very little firing this turn. There may be something from the Confederate skirmishers over there. They'll need 6s. Let's just roll that now. One casualty on the guns. That takes them up to 8. That will destroy that Union battery that's closest to those skirmishers, as it was on 7 casualties. 8 is the break point. So Graham's brigade is now broken. It has suffered 50% casualties. None of these troops can fire down here, so the next one to fire will be the 7th South Carolina. This will be a volley at -1. They roll a 3, so they lose fire discipline. And then we've got 2 units here. The 8th Georgia, they do count as moving, so this will be a volley at -3. They roll a 6 for a standard volley. That'll be 1 casualty on the 22nd Maine, I think it was. And then the 59th Georgia, again this will be at -1. They lose fire discipline as well and cause no casualties. All right, we'll put the smoke down and then we'll do some return fire from Tilton's brigade. Right, a deadbeat volley from the Maine. They're still firing well. That's an 8. That's pretty good for a deadbeat volley. That's 2 more casualties. That takes the 8th Georgia up to 6 casualties. They've certainly taken the brunt of the firing from that Maine regiment, clearly going for their veteran status. And then our other Maine regiment will open fire. It rolls a 6 for a standard volley. That is 1 casualty, taking the 59th Georgia up to 2 casualties. And we won't fire the final Union regiment because they moved over the fence line and they're unformed. So that would be a pretty ineffective volley for them. Right, that's it for turn 10. We'll do ADCs and see what happens to our 2 Grams. Right, let's see how the Union do. They've got 2 on-table brigades. Those will be the blue dice, and 2 off-table brigades. Do pretty well. They get 3 ADCs. There's a chance for Graham's brigade, even though it's not in a good state. It may hang on. Let's roll for the rebels. They've got 5 ADCs. Staff officers, I'll get it right. And they roll 4 as well. So 4 for the Confederates and 3 for the Union. Let's allocate. Right, so we're putting no staff officers on the Georgias. They are active. We're doing a redeploy on the Texans. That needs 3 of our staff officers. That goes off. We put a re-roll on the South Carolina. That goes off. And then for our Mississippi, they go off. All rebel brigades are active. And then for the Union, we've got 3. So we'll put 2 on Graham's brigade and 1 on Weed's newly arrived brigade. So rolling for Weed's first. They're active. And then for Tilton's brigade, they are hesitant. But they're probably okay because they'll remain in place and volley. And then for Graham's brigade, so we have a roll on this, a re-roll on this one. It is tuckered out, so the best we can get is for it to be hesitant. We roll a 2. No, we will go for our re-roll. We roll a 6, so they go hesitant. So they can't advance, they can't fire at anything long range, but they don't actually flee from the table this turn. And I guess that means, again, they've rallied. They will be very difficult to activate, being a tuckered out brigade now. All right, so perhaps not quite the end of the battle. Let's roll for initiative. This will be +1. For the Confederates, the Union finally re-establish initiative. They get to move first. Let's see what Weed's brigade does. Actually, before we move Weed's brigade, we are going to do a charge. The 7th South Carolina are in the flank of this regiment from Maine. They are going to charge. So no defensive fire, but the rebels are coming off that hillside, so that's count as difficult terrain, so they've got to roll, see if they go unformed. 5, they do go unformed. That won't help their charge, but there's no defensive volley. Let's do the charge results as they crash into the flank of the 22nd Maine. So attacker modifiers, unformed is -2, but they're charging in the flank, so that is +2. They suffered no casualties, but they do have 6, so it'll be -1 on the rebels. And for the Union, they are flanked, so this is a -2 modifier for the Union. And how many casualties have they got? They've only got 2. So this is a net +1 modifier for the Confederate forces. The Union roll a 9, the Confederates roll a 7, so they lose by 1. So they will stop and volley. Okay, so the rebels do not charge home, but they do cause 2 casualties on the main regiment. All right, we'll just do some firing and I'll give you a recap. All right, let's do a recap. I think this is about turn 11, possibly end of turn 10. I didn't move the Texan Brigade forward because I think I need to reunite my South Carolina regiment and then allow the Texans to come through this gap. So that'll be something for next turn to do. Otherwise, the rest of the South Carolina regiment are swinging round to the right to attack the newly arriving elements of Weed's Brigade and the remnants of Graham's Brigade. The Mississippi are also starting to reform. A bunch of their units were unformed. They've formed up now, getting ready to again. They're now looking to push the remnants of Trobriand's Brigade, which are those 3 small units on the hill there in the distance. And down here we've just had an exchange of musketry by the Confederate and Union regiments. One of the Union regiments failed its See the Elephant test, took a bit of a crushing volley, took 3 casualties, and has fallen back behind the rest of Tilton's brigade. But the Union position is now looking stronger with Weed's brigade arriving. I will take stock at the end of this one. I'll probably post this video and we'll see whether it's worth pushing on. It's just going to be a slugfest now against these remaining Union forces in this small corner of the table. The rebels have taken Little Round Top, they've taken this portion of the ridge, they've taken the Peach Orchard, they've captured all of their objectives. The Georgia Brigade is pretty much in good health. The Texan Brigade has taken no casualties at all. South Carolina is starting to feel a bit worn, and the Mississippi has taken a lot of casualties. But against that, Graham's Brigade continues to be on the point of collapse. Yes, we have a fair amount of Union reinforcements. That was the problem that the Confederates faced at Gettysburg. But for this assault, they have cracked this corner of the Union line. And we still have that conundrum for the Union. They've still got a corner position, which gives them vulnerability. And we do have the elite Texan regiments looking to pile into that area of vulnerability in the Union lines. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this video. This is the end of the second major video of the actual game itself and the end of part 3. Do pop up some comments if you like the video. And look forward to speaking to you all next time.